You're listening to the Fantasy Wildcard Podcast.
Good evening. Welcome back to the Fantasy Wildcard Dynasty Show. I'm your host, Kev. You can follow me on X at the Dynasty Mind. We've got the best two with us tonight. Got myself and we've got the main man, Mags, who's just been messed about with Asbulla. You can follow Mags on X at Hot Seat Mags. And it's Mags' birthday tomorrow. A happy birthday. And how are you doing, Mags?
I'm doing great, mate. Thank you very much for the early birthday wishes. You're right, my little Hasbulla is falling over. He's seen better days. I'll set him over there. Yeah, mate, I'm doing really well. How goddamn awesome was it having actual NFL football on, like proper stuff, not the preseason that doesn't really count. Let's be honest. Just great sitting down, getting Red Zone on, watching the games until you know it's too late and you should be in bed, but you just watch them anyway. It's the best, right?
Honestly, like, football's back is the main thing. It's like, obviously I get a buzz coming on every show every week with the Wildcard team, but
yeah,
filling out the show sheet, thinking about what I was going to talk about tonight and watching the action at the weekend, it's just got me so giddy and excited to share our thoughts with the audience. And the late nights begin now for the next 4 months, so it's going to be grueling for the body, and but it's also going to be a lot of fun. And speaking of late nights grueling for the body, we've not got Ali with us tonight. I guess he's probably struggling to deal with the late nights and some of his bad takes from the off season. But we'll I'm only kidding, Ali. We all make mistakes. But yeah, we're gonna be recapping week 1 of the Dynasty season. Give you our thoughts on some hot topics and things that stood out to us, positive and negative. And we're going to come to you first, Mags. The first topic of the season, and this is a feel-good story, so I think it's a great place to start. Who would you like to discuss?
Yeah, I thought let's kick things off with some feel-good news, but it just brought such a smile to my face if you think about what we were saying this time last year about this player. But J.K. Dobbins is back, Kev. He is no longer got an Achilles heel. He's Achilles healed. At least he certainly looks that way. We were all kind of unsure what this new look offense is going to look like under Harbaugh over at the Chargers, but to see that it's J.K. Dobbins, not just slowly kind of coming in and taking over this offense, but he came in and he seems to be the guy there right away, which is just incredible to see. He ended up rushing the ball, I think, a lot more than any of us really expected. I thought it was going to be mostly Gus Edwards with a sprinkle of J.K. Dobbins in there, but the guy came in, he was given the workload immediately. And I don't know about you, but I didn't see too much signs of like this looked like a guy that was injured, or this looking like a guy that's coming off what has been called for years, the death warrant for running backs in the NFL, right? It's something that you cannot come back from. No player has ever come back from it. And yet here we are watching a guy like Dobbins come in, take those carries. What did he take? 5-6 carries at least, rush for a good amount as well. I was super pleased with what I've seen. I think it's a feel-good story. And I believe it was week 1 last year, Kev, where we were talking about Dobbins was out for the season with that Achilles injury. This is a guy who's always had amazing sort of stats when he hit the field. I think he averaged over 6 yards a carry for his whole NFL career before the injury. Seeing him back looking so good so early, not just saying it because he is my most owned Dynasty player, I promise. I'm delighted to see J.K. Dobbins back. I think he kicks on as well. I think we see more Dobbins. I think we start to see that workload go even heavier in J.K. Dobbins' favor. It was great to see him. Were you happy to see him back?
I'll be honest, Max, like, so happy for him. First guy I thought of was you, because I remember you said he is your most owned Dynasty player, and it was a crazy percentage of ownership and exposure you had to him last year. But I just love the fact that it was a year ago to the week where he had that awful injury, terrible injury look throughout his career actually, and to see him come back like he did, 10 touches on the ground, 3 through the air, but over 130 rushing yards and a touchdown, that late run in the fourth quarter to ice the game as such, or put it on ice as almost. Look, like if we're nitpicking, he did get caught from behind on that play, and you know what? I think pre-injury Dobbins would have took that to the house, but I don't think he's ever been, even in college, considered to be that elite 4-4 speed as such. He's been more of a shifty runner that's great laterally and in the short area. So I think all that was on display. I think, like I say, it's going to get better as he strengthens and continues building himself back from injury and getting football touches again. The confidence has got to be, it's got to come in time. I think if he's running on 90% confidence now, that extra 10% is going to be massive because until he gets a number of games under his belt, there's going to be slight hesitations in some of the movements. But I think you look at the backfield, it's wide open. Gus Edwards, we know what he is. I'm really pleased for J.K. Dobbins. I think he's someone that there's potential there could be an overreaction and people want more than a second to obtain him. But I do also think there's potential that, let's say they've got the Panthers this week, there's potential that if they blow him out, they don't need to give him unnecessary touches at this stage. So while it's promising and while I think it's looking like he's the guy to own there could be a little bit of a buy window at a certain point, maybe after this week, if the workload isn't the same as we expect. But I do think he's super solid. He deserves more touches. If he gets 15, 16, 17 touches this week, I think that's an excellent pointer for the future. It just might be difficult to obtain him based on the people that have got him have probably gone through what you've gone through, Mags, and had him for a while, held him through the tough times and good times. They never seem so good now with J.K. Dobbins. So, perfect start to the show, perfect start to the season. I'm sure it's going to bring smiles to a lot of many people's faces. And we're going to keep it running back. Like the topic I've picked out is veteran running back gold. And I'll be honest, if you didn't pick up on Dobbins, I was going to shoehorn him into this section, even though he's 25 years old. I was going to say, right, veteran guy. Let's get him in there. I also nearly stuck Saquon in this segment, Go Birds, but I just felt that what I was going to discuss around the topic, it probably wouldn't fit exactly what was planned. I think that stood out for me this weekend, it's kind of not taking a victory lap in week one, but I think as a team, as a group at Wildcard, we speak about veteran running backs being values in Dynasty, going that late 20, early 30 range, guys that have done it for years, that maybe the cliff is going to come soon and there's not tons of production left in these guys. But they're just, like I've said, fantasy gold. Players that really stood out to me, Joe Mixon, who's 28 years old, running back 2 on the week.
He looked so good.
He did. 33 touches, a 9.4% target share, which, look, there's room to grow. This is a team that's playing with a lead. 26.8 fantasy points. He got that touchdown as well. There wasn't a lot challenging him in that backfield. Damian Pierce with a couple of touches there. So he was one that really stood out as a great performance. Alvin Kamara was another running back 6 on the week, 22 fantasy points per game. He got 15 carries, 5 receptions. This is in a game where he only played 52% of the snaps. He only needed to play that because they blew out the Panthers as expected. And James Conner, another 29-year-old running back 8 on the week, 19.3 fantasy points. Very similar usage to Alvin Kamara. But when I look at that backfield, Trey Benson got 4 touches, D. Mercado got 2. I just think all of these guys, like, there is sometimes a redraft mentality in Dynasty where people want to play for now. We've seen a lot of the overreactions to players like Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison not living up to expectations week 1, and people are getting worried already. But I think veteran running backs a space in Dynasty where people continually get this wrong, where they're just looking for the young roster the sexy pieces to build around. But I think we are an advocate here on the Dynasty Show of getting an early running back who can sort of anchor your team. But then also, we're not shying away from these veterans at value, running back 20-30, like we said, and avoiding a lot of the mess in the middle. I know we tend to be lower on guys like DeAndre Swift. So I want to shout out the old guys. I'm an old guy. You'll be a year older tomorrow. What's your thoughts on the running back gold?
Yeah, I think this is like we had been saying it all offseason, guys like this, and any kind of times we've done mock drafts or things like that. You look at guys like Mixon, Kamara, James Conner, just like they're such good value. And I know there is the saying, that sometimes people get old overnight, and we've seen it happen recently with guys like Austin Eckler, but realistically, it's usually more of a steady decline. And I just don't see how you could ever think that a guy like Alvin Kamara, who is the best running back fantasy-wise that we've seen the last, 10 years, right? In terms of his consistency, in terms of where he finishes, he's not going to just disappear, especially when his competition is non-existent. So the value for him is absolutely brilliant. I thought James Conner, a guy that, I do think will be usurped by Trey Benson, but I think we all seen that he's still the guy there at least for now anyway. And shout out guys about like Aaron Jones coming in, still doing a really, really solid job, almost cracking 100 yards as well. These old running backs, hopefully you listen to us during the offseason, because the price just went up, ladies and gentlemen. There's going to be a huge increase on how much Joe Mixon's costing you, how much Alvin Kamara is costing you, how much James Conner is costing you. Guys that you could have probably bought quite comfortably for less than a first round pick just a few weeks ago. You're going to need to pay up at least a first round for Mixon and Kamara. You could probably get Conner for less, but again, his value is sort of stifled by the incoming Trey Benson. So yeah, these guys, we tried to tell you. These guys are still old but gold. I loved seeing it. And I think for the rest of the season, these guys will be right up there as well. I think Kamara especially is going to have a real good season because not a whole lot of not that it affected against the Panthers, but not a whole lot to throw to there. So I think Kamara will get a little more of a lion's share of targets.
Yeah, these are guys you definitely need to be targeting. I think if anybody is asking for first, please refrain from doing that at running back especially. I've got a bit of a terrible story to tell you a little bit later in the show about one of my first. But if you're getting caught in anything, a deal involving a first for a 29-year-old running back, please try to counter with something a second and a third, maybe even 2 seconds towards the back end of the season. But it's veteran gold, but don't be paying the gold price as such to get them. But we're keeping it on the theme of gold, and we're going to come on to a topic now, Konami Kings. So Kings have a lot of gold, don't they, right?
Oh, these guys, I mean, we spoke about them last week. I mean, Kev, we're both big fans of Anthony. You put in the show notes, Anthony freaking Richardson, right? We're both huge fans of him. Like, the guy is he's a freak, right? That is the best way you can describe him. And then he's got, his like little cousin Jaden Daniels who kind of runs around, but more in a scampering kind of way as well. We've seen that these guys don't look. Anthony Richardson threw some absolute bombs down the field to Alex Pierce, right? But let's not kid ourselves. He missed about 2 to 3 real wide open chances. Yeah. But with a guy like him, doesn't matter. He was QB3 because of that rushing upside, because of that ability to get into the end zone, dragging half of a team along with him. It's just, rushing is so overpowered at the minute in fantasy football for these quarterbacks. Maybe down the line, people try and do something to adjust that. We've kind of seen that happen with, PPR coming in to give some of these running backs and other guys more of a boost. It might be that down the line, it becomes more common for quarterbacks to get half of what a running back would for rushing, just because it seems slightly overpowered. And we've seen things like with Justin Fields before, where a guy that isn't actually that good a quarterback is like unbelievable for your fantasy team. So we might see a quelling in that. So I'm saying take advantage while you can and get as many of these guys on your team because they're fun to watch. Jaden Daniels, you must be delighted, Kev. You've been the biggest Jaden Daniels guy that I know, and he's just, again, not look great at passing, but it doesn't matter because we know that he has that in his locker. We know he has the ability to go downfield. They're obviously slowly letting the air out of the balloon here. No, that sounds bad. Slowly pumping the ball up. They'll say that. We'll do the opposite, right? They're slowly getting him pumped up and ready to go. I can't wait to see what these Konami Kings, Anthony Richardson, Jaden Daniels, and of course Daniel Jones can do next week.
Not Daniel Jones, we'll edit that out. Look, Anthony Richardson, Jaden Daniels, collectively, like I'm not going to take all the credit. Collectively, we've been above consensus on all of them. But me in particular on Jaden Daniels, I think you summed it up really well there. QB3, QB4 on the week for these two Konami Kings. And like you say, the pass attempts, Richardson had 19, Daniels had 24. They're both playing from behind as well. So they could be big, like pretty significant numbers compared to if they're playing with a lead. I do think there's work in the passing game. Like Anthony Richardson, he missed those few deep bombs to Adonai Mitchell, which that absolutely killed me in DFS. I had over 50% exposure to Mitchell. It went to Pierce instead, and that's probably cost me quite a few quid. But I was investing in Richardson this weekend with the DFS stuff. I also had a bet on him to score an anytime touchdown, which that was great to see him hit the green right near the end as well, Q4. So really pleased with that. And it's on the ground. Look, Richardson had 56 yards and a touchdown. Daniels had 88 yards and 2 touchdowns. We're not saying that's going to be the same every week, but it has been so far for Anthony Richardson in his career with the 3 or 4 games he's had. And we've already seen the market react to these Konami Kings. Richardson's got up to QB6, Daniels up to QB9 at Keep Trade Cut. Wow. So I think the early part of the season, this is week 1 reaction. I think it's important that there is a reaction to certain things. And I think it's also important that some parts you don't need to overreact. These are 2 guys, though, that had big questions about what they could do. And I think as we get into the season, if they stay at this level, this performance, it's going to solidify where they are, and they're just going to keep going up and up. And the sky is the limit with these two gentlemen.
Agreed.
Okay, so we spoke about 3 really positive topics to kick off the show and kick off the season. We're going to have to flip it up now. We're going to be talking about tight end, or as we like to say, tight end, more like fright end.
Yeah, fright end. I love that. Absolutely fantastic. Yeah, I kind of been the only one that noticed tight end this week. A little bit nubs, right, Kev? Just kind of not a huge amount there. I think a lot of people, unless you had, one of the 3 tight ends that got over 5 receptions, you're kind of like, not too happy with that. In the end, there were 3. There was Trey McBride and Brock Bowers, by the way. Hello. That's quite nice. He's right up there as one of the guys with 3 or more reception. And of course, Isaiah Likely, who, I did say, if you remember our flag plant show, whenever we were saying who do we think will rise up, and Phil said Isaiah Likely, and I said if this was coming from anybody else, I would be like, this is a load of rubbish. But it's like Phil knows a lot about the Ravens, and it's like what does he know? And that got me intrigued about Isaiah Likely. So I went out and actually got myself an extra share of Isaiah Likely because of that. Nice. So shout out the Posh Players himself, getting me another share of Isaiah Likely, because that could prove to be absolutely fantastic. So love that. But those were the only 3 guys with 5 receptions or more. If you look at last year, there were 8, right? 5 whole other tight ends. In 2022, there were 7. So I just hope that it's a bit of a trend that in week 1, people were trying to maybe play it a bit safer. It seemed like quarterbacks were throwing the ball a little bit less. There were teams running a little bit more. Seemed like everyone was a little more cautious. And I don't know, Kev, we were chatting a bit off air. What are NFL teams do? I don't understand the preseason and how it's like in preseason, what we will do is play everyone apart from our best players. So all of our rubbish players are ready to go, but our best players, they're going to need about a month. That's why the Bengals can't win the first 3 games to save their life in the last decade, because they're never ready. So is it why is this a trend that seems to be getting even worse, that you're just not playing your best players? Are they afraid that they're going to get targeted and injured, or what the hell is going on? I don't understand it.
It's strange, isn't it? Like, our biggest comparable is soccer, we'll call it, where the pre-season it's so heavy, it's so tough, getting players up to shape. And we're not saying this doesn't happen in American football, but and it probably can to a certain extent because of the different body shapes and sizes. But you also got to think, like, why are so many teams really struggling from the off with everything? You've got all off season to prepare for game 1. Like, you know who you're playing well in advance. You've got many months to get in the right game shape. And yes, there is injuries and things that can derail it a little bit. But yeah, an interesting one to ponder, why certain teams like the Bengals, who got plenty of stick on last night's Wildcard Rewind show, why they notoriously start the season slow. But tight end, for me, like, I'm not overreacting to tight end. I think we have seen strange weeks. Every season there's the odd strange week where just randomers score touchdowns and the main guys don't. I feel those won in the fantasy playoffs last year where it occurred. So I'm not overreacting too much to the bad stuff, but we'll come on to a little bit of overreactions later on. There's some tight ends in there. I think if it continues for 2 or 3 weeks, there's going to be some very worried owners of tight ends that are taken early, because I think even though the tier's got bigger, I wouldn't say the price has gone down massively at the high end, especially sort of that 2 to 6 range. So yeah, there could be some more frights. This topic might come up again in the next few weeks, and it brings on nicely to another area which caused a lot of concern. It's something that I'm basically, this came to mind on the back of a really poor trade that I made at the weekend. QB's projected for less than 7 wins. Got me thinking basically that this, I'll set the scene, tough league to obtain a QB. And I was scrambling with the Russell Wilson news being out. I needed a QB2, and the only logical player I could go for was Will Levis, and I ended up parting with my 2025 first as part of a deal for Will Levis. I got a second back and a fourth back, and gave a third as well. But it just got me thinking, like, and it's only week 1. It was tough. It was on the road at the Bears. Just thought about, should I be concerned? Is that a poor move? And how can I work backwards to, if it does pan out this way where he's absolutely terrible, how can I sort of mitigate against this moving forward? And it got me thinking and looking at the other QBs who were projected to have less than 7 wins this season, which is usually an indicator of how the job security could go. If a team's winning 6 games a season, they're going to change the QB at some point. So I think one thing to take, but I'm definitely taking away heading into next season, I'm going to see which QBs are projected for less than 7 wins. And I'm going to actively try to avoid where it's not a rookie. I think with the rookies, and I'll go through the teams that were projected less than 7 wins for season. Rookie-wise, JJ McCarthy, Jaden Daniels, Drake May, Bo Nix, they're on teams that have took them early in the draft. So to discount them would be foolish, because they're in a situation where the expectation is that team gets better. They have more projected wins next season, but it's more the veterans I was thinking about. Gardner Minshew, with the Raiders, that's a stopgap, so we're not counting him.
Yeah.
3 guys that were on teams with less than 7 wins that were considered veterans. So not a lot of criteria. These are the 3 guys, and see if you can spot any common theme in these 3 guys. Daniel Jones, Bryce Young, Will Levis. They was all terrible week 1. A lot of concerns with all of them. Probably the least concerns with Will Levis with his situation. these were all going in range on that QB 2-3 cusp, sort of 20, 21 range to late 20s. I'm worried about these guys. Like I said a little while ago, not to overreact, but these three in particular, they're on the hot seat for me now. There's questions being asked. I think Brian Dale had to come out and say that Daniel Jones is start week 2, which is just absolutely wild. Like having to say that is ominous, I would say. So Daniel Jones, Bryce Young, that was embarrassingly bad. And yeah, Will Levis, he had a good first half, but second half just fell to pieces. And that final pick at the end was schoolboy stuff. It was terrible.
It was bad.
So what's your thoughts on these three guys, and how much weight are you going to put into looking at projected wins heading into next season?
Yeah, I don't think any of them are long for a starting job. The only thing that might save them, apart, Bryce Young is toast, right? Bryce Young's done. Bryce Young has never been a good fantasy quarterback option. It's what, again, I think we were sort of consensus, I think, on the show as well, a little bit lower on Bryce Young whenever he was coming out, even though he was the number 1 pick overall. It was like, well, how's he going to win in fantasy? And it turns out he doesn't. He's not going to win in fantasy, and he's not going to win on the field either, because that Panthers team look absolute trash as well. So I think Bryce Young is gone. Will Levis, I think, has more of a chance, because I think the Titans might be a good enough team where they don't finish poorly enough to end up with an extra quarterback. Daniel Jones, I think, is the money. They might have to play him next year as well. I don't know what his contract situation is like, but he might have to play just because of the terrible contract that he's locked into. The only thing that is saving these guys is, as we speak right now on September in 2024, not a huge amount of quarterback buzz coming in for the 2025 class. You've got a guy like Quinn Ewers at Texas, who is considered by a few people right up at the top. He's not even the guy that the Texas fans want to see play. Like, that is the kind of guy that's coming through right now. You got Shedeur Sanders, who is an incredibly raw prospect that isn't probably going to do a hell of a lot better than any of these guys anyway currently. And then someone like Carson Beck, who is about as exciting as a cardboard birthday cake. He's just not...
Love it.
Not the kind of guy that you love having in your team. So this might also save them. The fact that as of right now, not a huge amount of competition coming in from the 2025 class to replace them. So I think Jones and Levis have a chance, at least, of keeping the job next year. But Bryce Young's done. They're going to finish. They're going to pick first. And they're probably going to take someone like Carson Beck, even though that's probably not who they should take from this draft class. But that's probably what they're going to do.
Yeah, and the Panthers have just lost the best defensive player as well. So they're staring at picking high again. And it's going to be a situation like Fields last year, where actually they had the number 1 pick, and he did okay towards the end of the season. But if there's a chance to re-roll and you're still unsure on Bryce Young, it's time to go. And it's funny, actually, because Bryce Young, his initials spell the word bye. So I think he might say bye-bye to Bryce Young a little bit later on this season. Now, not to overreact, but we're going to finish with a really interesting topic that Ali put on the show sheet before I decided he couldn't bother coming on tonight. Week 1 overreactions or reactions. We're going to play the traffic light game here. So I don't know if this is what Ali intended, but it's the way we're going to take it, because we're on the show and he's not. So going to go player by player, and really simple. How worried are you about these current Dynasty assets? Red will obviously be very worried, red alert. Amber, sort of lukewarm, could be in time. And green will be someone that, it's week 1, plenty of time to sort itself out. So, Deshaun Watson.
This sort of reminds me of as well. Do you ever go to like a traffic light party? I don't know if you're that much of a
Yeah.
degenerate, right? And like
Yes.
you would wear like yellow or orange just to play it cool, right? just you'd never go in wearing green just in case. So yeah, I would always rock an orange or a yellow to play it cool. And then
Yeah.
some people like wearing aggressive reds when we go, and that's what I'm with Deshaun Watson right now. It's an aggressive red, Kev, because this guy looks like he's not interested in playing football. It's like he's thinking about what am I going to have for dinner later, or what's that? And we kind of did mention it again a few years ago when he came back. It's regardless of what the hell happened in his personal life, if he was guilty, if he was innocent, the fact is everybody thinks that he's guilty, and that's going to play a mind on him no matter what. He knows everyone thinks that he's a scumbag, and I don't care how mentally strong you say you are. That's impossible to deal with. So I'm red alert for Deshaun Watson. He's going to keep his job as well because he's on a ridiculous contract, but he just maybe needs to get back to super basics. He's trying to play like the Texans, Deshaun Watson, and he's just not that guy anymore. He needs to strip it all back, go back to basics, run the ball, dump offs, keep it simple, because right now he just doesn't look like... He looks like a Deshaun Watson cosplayer. Like, he doesn't look like the same guy at all.
Yeah, I think he's a red for me as well. Like, if he was at a traffic light party, he'd be trying his best not to get banged, but I think that's what we should be doing to him in Dynasty. He should be getting banged out of your team. And it's a sorry state of affairs that for anybody owning him in Dynasty. Next guy, Kirk Cousins. Give me
an orange and Kirk Cousins, because I've sort of said this before, and I know this is against the grain, but if Kirk Cousins was really a good quarterback, two teams wouldn't have let him walk. So yeah. I think at Minnesota, he had the perfect. We've seen literally a guy who sees ghosts like perform well in that system. So how good is Kirk Cousins really? I think we're about to find out. Give me an orange for now.
Yeah, I'm with you on orange. I think that it looked like he was still favouring the injury a little bit from last season.
Right.
Not getting passes there and not planting that foot. So I think there's worry there. I'm a Penix fan, and I think that if you remember back, like everyone was convinced, the market was convinced it's going to be 2 years. Definitely, 100% 2 years before Penix starts in 2026. Look, think something, but also leave that the door open to other suggestion. I think it's looking likely that Penix is going to be playing before 2026. So he's an amber for me. It could be, again, something that can come back with in time with health, but we both agree on that one as well. Joe Burrow.
I mean, would I be more worried if Joe Burrow come out week 1 and actually played well? Would I be like, what's going on at the Bengals? Like, there's something fishy going on here. Bengals are all... Yeah. There's like, so what's going on here? What's really in that bleach in your hair, Joe? No, I'm not. Joe Burrow's a green. The Bengals are always terrible at the start, and they always pull it together at the end. And then if everyone stays healthy, they look unstoppable at times towards the end of the season. So it's a green for Joe Burrow, definitely for me.
Good stuff. Right, we'll go quick fire for the rest of the positions.
Okay.
Just give us a colour, right? It's funny because this guy's actually, his surname is a colour. Rashad White.
Red.
Oh, I'm an amber on Rashad White. Ty J. Spears.
Green. I'm okay with that,
yeah. Green for me as well. Chase Brown.
Red.
I'm scared. Christian Kirk.
Green.
Amber because he plays in... he only plays in 3 wide receiver sets. JSN.
I'm still green, but I'm getting close to the amber. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I'm in a similar spot to you there. Drake London.
Well, he's green for me because he's doing exactly what I said he would do, Kev. So I'm not really worried about his production because it's exactly what I thought it would be. Yeah,
I think people need to consider the amber on this one if they're on the green. If you smell like listening to us guys, obviously. Mark Andrews.
Green.
Yeah, green for me on Mark. Travis Kelce.
Green. Gotta be green.
Got to be green. And we can have a few words on this last one. I think it's quite funny that Ali put this guy on the show sheet. He might have got a few mentions last night on Wildcard Rewind as well. Dalton Kincaid.
Oh, like as green as the Irish Emerald Isle. Like he will be just fine. Don't you worry. Last week was just Josh Allen trying to show off. It's time to get Dalton Kincaid in the mix a little bit more. He'll be just fine.
Yeah, it was a weird one. I think I'm sort of green, but I'm close to amber. So we'll see how that one pans out in time. I think give it 4 weeks, then reassess. But well done for Ali for putting Dalton Kincaid as the last one on there. He did it in perfect order. Kelce and then Kincaid at the end. Smart guy.
I know.
So it's absolutely flown by. We've got through the week 1 reaction recap on this week's show. Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to follow us and subscribe to us on X and YouTube at Fantasy Wildcard and at Wildcard Dynasty. Our shows every Tuesday of the season. Make sure you do check us out. Thank you once again. Have a good one. And we'll see you again next week.
When you have the wild card, you have the power to change the game.